This is going to be kind of long and kind of drawn out and kind of going in circles, but I hope that you will stick with me. Hi, and welcome back to my kitchen, where we talk about things that I want to talk about while I cook food. So today we're going to talk about something. I will put a warning out on this right now that I am going to talk about things that are a bit heavy, such as addiction, eating disorders, death. So why not? Just a cheery Wednesday. But before we do that, we're gonna make minestrone soup. So I've got all the stuff here for minestrone, making some adjustments because I'm just kind of working with what I had. I didn't want to buy like freaking 1 carrot, stuff like that. So I have some water boiling on the stove because I am going to add in a cup of velvet macaroni. Minestrone soup is delicious. It is one of my favorite things to eat. There are multiple ways you can make it. I'm making mine with a chicken stock base. You can use, I think like most restaurants are like, I don't think like places like the Olive Garden, which I refer to as Italian McDonald's. I think theirs is the vegetarian version or vegan. Is it vegan? No, it must be vegetarian though. Pretty sure. Although it could be vegan. I don't know. I should look that up. But some places do use a beef stock base, right? Or there is beef cooked into it, like spare ribs or something into it. I know, like, if you're familiar with this place, there's one in Minnesota. I don't know where they are anymore these days, but it's called the Old Spaghetti Factory. Theirs is more of they use a beef base in theirs. And so you can do it a couple different ways. I'm using chicken stock. I had some on hand, and I just picked up an extra one. I'm also not using kidney beans. I'm using cannellini beans because it just happens to be what I've got in the house right now. So we're going with that. Some crushed tomatoes, some diced tomatoes that are going to give us a nice like tomatoey base on it. It's like 6 cups of chicken broth or chicken stock. And then we're going to toss in 1 onion, 2 stalks of celery. We're going to use some green beans. And then garlic. It calls for 4. We'll see. I might put more in. We'll see what happens. And then also some carrots. So I don't have whole carrots, but I do have some shredded carrots from a carrot muffin recipe that I tried out. It was okay. I generally like carrot cake, but it was actually better the next day after the muffins like sat overnight. It was pretty good. But that's what we're working with today. And then just regular oregano, basil leaves, and then for garnish, I do still have some fresh basil in the fridge. If it's not completely dead, I will be using that. So we're going to cook the pasta separate from the soup. You can cook it together. You just have to plan for a little bit more of liquid soup, broth, what? Yeah, so you can do it that way. I'm going to elect not to, just to keep the noodles a little bit more al dente. Otherwise, they can get kind of mushy, and I don't love mushy. I don't love it. So that's what we're doing. But while we do this, I wanted to talk about what I call, I don't know, it's like a reverse butterfly effect. It's what, you know, the butterfly effect, right? Where it's like if something didn't happen, then something else wouldn't have happened. So I guess it is the butterfly effect. Yeah. So this is my butterfly effect. Blah, 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 blah. Blah. This is my butterfly effect. I can't. My butterfly effect of how I ended up doing CrossFit. And you're going to be like, God, that thing, it's a cult. I'm telling you, it's a cult. All you do is talk about CrossFit, talk about going to CrossFit, talk about coming home from CrossFit. Today is actually my active recovery day, so I did not go to CrossFit today. We're going to start with this onion, by the way. I did not go to CrossFit today. Actually, at noon, in between meetings, I went out for a walk for about an hour or so. So it's about 2 miles. Maybe more than that, 2.5 miles, maybe? Maybe it was 2.5 miles today. Yeah, and it was good. It felt good to recover. We had a pretty intense workout yesterday, so it's nice to recover. I do have, and I've said this before, I have 1 active recovery day a month. No, a week, and then I have 1 day where I kind of do a lot of nothing except for like running errands or laundry, just stuff around the house, because I'm not doing well with this onion today, guys. I'm not. So that was my day today, and I was going to wait and record on Saturday, but I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it today, because it's a nice day out, get some stuff cooked up, and talk to you about what's on my mind. So people will ask me in my real life, because I literally have like 14 followers on YouTube, who I all appreciate, by the way. I have no idea who you are. So for all I know, it's my mom. So people ask me, like, why CrossFit? Why do you do CrossFit? And it's kind of a long, boring story, but let me start with why I ended up, well, how do I want to do this? Like, do I want to tell you how I got into CrossFit? Or do I want to tell you, like, when I first started training? Let's do the when I first started training, and then it'll lead me to my butterfly effect, because you need some background context on this. So at my heaviest, I was 297 pounds, so that is over 100 pounds more than what I weigh right now. I started my weight loss journey in 2007, and I connected with a personal trainer at the time. Oh my God, this onion is really strong. Here in the promised land where I live now. The reason why was because I had a friend of mine who had lost a bunch of weight, you know, working out, and I was jealous, and I didn't want to be the fat friend. And then my brother, my older brother, had met a girl, and I knew when I met her that she was going to be my sister-in-law. Like, the minute I met her. And so I didn't want to be 300 pounds at their wedding. And I know that that sounds vain, because it is. And I wasn't having any sort of like health complications. You know, I was too young, so I was in my late 20s. And I've been having my whole life, and just, you know, had a really kind of messed up relationship with food, and, you know, and things that I have kind of uncovered now later in my life of like what led to that. And then also just personality characteristics and things that I recognize now as like, you know, a little OCD and, you know, just different things. Lost a shit ton of weight. And then I became a statistic, and I had gained a significant amount of that weight back. And that's embarrassing as fuck. Let me tell you, if you've ever been in that camp, you will know, like, it's embarrassing when it happens, because you're like, oh, I'm not going to be that person. Oh, trust me. Like, eventually someone, and not in all cases, but a lot of people end up being that person. So, but thankfully for me, I was able to lose the weight that I had gained, right? And I have been relatively about the same weight now for years, since like 2018. So, oh my God, I have to wash my hands. This is awful. The onion was too big, so I'm not going to put all this. It was like, it calls for like a medium onion, and this was maybe more like a largish onion. So maybe I'll just do like 3/4 of this, and then we'll save the rest. Next up, green beans. Okay, so now you have that part of the story. Okay, so let's back up. And this is how we're going to get to, oh wait, let me tell you about my trainer. So my trainer, before he was a personal trainer, he was in the Marine Corps. He's a badass. Okay, my trainer. So before he was a personal trainer, he was in the Marine Corps. He was a PT instructor, so he was in charge of getting like the out of shape Marines in shape, right, for their PT exams. We're just going to cut these up, right, into smaller pieces. I have a little bit, probably too many green beans here, but we're going to use them all just for some bulk. There's not a lot of pasta in this soup either, so the pasta is not the focal point of it. So it's good to just kind of bulk it up with some veggies. And you can use any kind of veggies you want. You could use, like, anything that's in season is perfect. Like, you don't have to do it my way. You can do it whatever way you want. Okay, so he was a PT instructor, and he used to make me wish I died, and I loved it. So I want you to hold on to that piece of information. Well, let's back up about a decade. In 1999, my older cousin Shannon met a man named George, and he's from New York, and he was a musician, and she was a musician, and she was like a cocktail waitress when she met him, like at the, you know, the club that his band was playing in, and his band is actually pretty well known, so I'm not going to say what it is. I would say it's well known in the alternative space, right? You know, a lot of people, they're like a regional situation, like a lot of people know who they are, and they fell in love. And she immediately like fell for him, he fell for her, you know, and then he like quit the band and came back to Wisconsin to like find her and, you know, and take her to New York and like have this fabulous life together. And so that's what they did. And they got married in 1999. Okay, so I would have been a freshman in college during that time frame. Everything was great. A couple years later, she had my cousin, you know, who is now in college, which just blows my mind, that my cousin's daughter is in college, that she is now the age I was when her parents got married, you know, so she's like 19 right now. And so everything was great. You know, she was working in New York as an actress, you know, doing marketing and advertising, you know, just loving her life, like having a great time with her life, right? Which is what you do. And she's a few years older than I am. I think she 5 years older? I think at least 4 years older than I was. So we're just like in little different places in our lives, you know, but you know, I don't have sisters. And so she's the next girl cousin older than I am. So she's the oldest and then I'm the second oldest. So we were pretty close. So in 2007, I took a job on the East Coast, and it was really awesome to be, now I'm chopping garlic, and we're going to go with 5 cloves of garlic. The recipe calls for 4. We're going with 5. You can use as much as you want. So in 2007, I moved to the East Coast, and we did not live super close to each other, but we were like a couple hours away from each other. Like I was in Connecticut, she was in upstate New York. And so we would see each other pretty regularly. She'd come to visit me, I'd go up there. And at that time, I didn't recognize what it was. And I feel like, do I feel responsible for that? Like, should I have known? No, I don't think so, because like I just wasn't there. Like I wasn't there, you know, enough to like notice it. But we had this joke, like, don't ever drink the Crystal Light at Shannon's house, because it was like 75% vodka. Okay. And I'm not kidding. And again, I didn't think anything of it, right? Like I didn't drink. So I didn't know, like I knew that it seemed weird. Like I was like, why would you drink that? Mix this stuff so strong. Like, but it didn't like dawn on me that there was something more going on there. This right here, green beans stuff, going in the pot. All right, so some green beans, onions, garlic in the pot. We're gonna toss some carrots in there here in a minute. We're just gonna let those get in there and get happy. And I also tossed in the macaroni. So in like 7 minutes, that's going to be done. So back to the story. So 2007, living out east, having fun, whatever, spending time with my cousin. You know, her daughter was pretty young at the time. She's still married to George, right? Obviously. You know, and it was good. Life was good. And it was, you know, again, I didn't notice things, right? Like that, I feel like I should have, but how was I supposed to know, and all that, right? Okay. So in 2009, I ended up moving back to the Midwest. This was after the mortgage bailouts, and like everything was just really weird on the East Coast, and you know, in terms of like job insecurity, and the cost of living is so high, and I had my fun, and I was kind of over it. You know, wanted to come back, you know, be closer to friends, family, all that. In 2009, like 2008, 2009, I think it was really, yeah, there was something weird had happened with her job, and you know, she worked for a company, and I won't go into the details, because I honestly don't know how much is public information, and you know, like, do I know things that I shouldn't know just because I talked to her about it? Like, I'm not sure, so I'm not really gonna go there. But some things happened, and like she blamed herself for some things that had nothing to do with her, and they were like actions and decisions that were made by other people. And so, but she felt very responsible for it. Like someone had gone on to like her Facebook page, like she didn't, you know, and Facebook was still like pretty new in 2008, 2009, like it only been around a few years at that point. Like she didn't realize that like her profile wasn't private, and like people went in there and like took pictures off of her, you know, off of her page to like prove this point, you know, that her company was acting unethically, and you know, all this stuff. And it was bogus, because people were mad, and it's petty, and that industry is petty, and it's superficial, and it's all these things. And so she really internalized a lot of that. And so I ended up moving back to Wisconsin, and then we would still talk every single day, and there would be times like when I would talk to her like after dinner, and she was like slowly, as we would talk, was becoming like more and more intoxicated as we were talking. And it wasn't uncommon though, especially on the East Coast, right? It's not uncommon, in a lot of places probably. Like again, I don't drink, so my frame of reference is very different probably than the average person. Um, it wasn't uncommon to like have a glass of wine with dinner or lunch, and but a glass for her would like turn into a bottle, and then she would go home, like she'd go to her in-laws and have dinner, and then she'd go home and she'd drink more, and like I knew she was upset about what had happened at her job, and I knew that, right? And I knew she felt terrible, and but I didn't understand like how much she had internalized that, and what was happening at the time. So we get to 2011, and she was in town. She had flown into the airport where I was living at the time. I wasn't in Milwaukee then. I was actually in Madison at the time, so I was in the capital city. While we were having dinner, she said something about wanting to have another baby. And I was super happy for her. I was like, oh my God, like this is amazing. I'm going to chop some celery. And, because her daughter was about 7, I would say at the time, I would think. And it was great. Like I was happy for her, and I was like, what does your husband think? And she's like, oh yeah, no, he's totally on board. Like, all this stuff. And, then she had told me that, she had been off the pill for like a year. And so I was like, and she wasn't getting pregnant. And then she said, oh, I, had some lab work done, and I'm in like early menopause. And I was like, okay, like, and I, it seemed odd because she would have only been, mid-30s at that point, right? Like not, not old. I mean, old for having a baby, but not old, not 40, not 45, like, I don't think that it's worth like continuing to try, like if I'm already in like, like premenopause. And I was like, well, it's up to you. Like, how much money do you want to spend? So she had said, I just, and I said, it depends, I guess, on how much money do you want to spend, right? Because, do you want to go through fertility treatments? Do you want to do it? And she's like, I think we're okay, and, leading up to that, like, she had experienced some, some really crazy things. Like, she'd been in this freak motorcycle accident, and then after that, she was out skating, ice skating with her daughter, like the following year, and she had fallen, and she fell on the ice and she broke her wrist. Put that in your back pocket too. So we have a few things in our back pocket. The fact that I like to suffer when I work out, infertility, and a broken wrist on what was not a catastrophic fall on the ice. Not picking up on some things. And then when we went to drive up north, she insisted that we stop and get like some like wine that's in like these juice boxes. So she could like, while I was driving, she could like sit in the car and have some wine. And I was like, who does that? And it was kind of funny and like quirky and weird, but I wasn't thinking about that there was a problem here. Fast forward a couple years. So now we get into 2014, 2015. And her and I had not spoken as often as we had previously. And all of a sudden I get like pictures on her birthday, which was in April, and she was like, oh my God, I'm just so happy to be alive, and like I'm loving my birthday. And I said, honey, like, what are you talking about? And she's like, oh, I was in the hospital, like my liver isn't working. And I was like, what? Like, she's like, yeah, they don't know what's going on, like, they tested me for all these things, and and thank God I'm okay, and, things are good, and I'm just so happy, and, blah. And then right around that same time, like in that 2014, probably 2013, 2014, 2015, her brother had gone to visit her in New York, and he was a nursing student at the time, and he had called his mom while he was there, and he was like, something is wrong with Shannon. Like, she's just really thin. Like, and she was always a thin person. Like, she was just very tall and thin, and But he's like, she's very skinny, and like she's just tired all the time, and and something just doesn't seem right. Put that in your pocket. So we get through, this like 2014 time frame probably of, oh my God, I'm so happy to be alive. And then she was hospitalized again in 2015. And they had to put a shunt in her liver to drain fluid. And again, it was, they don't know what's wrong. They can't figure this out. Like, they think I have Wilson's disease, which is not the case. She wouldn't have made it, right? Because that's, if you do not have a transplant, effectively, unless they catch it early enough where they can give you medication, you don't survive that. My friend's daughter has it. It was awful. So Google it if you are ever interested in what that disease looks like and what the progression looks like. And so 2015 rolls through, and she's hospitalized, and it's bad. And while she was hospitalized, her family, my aunt, uncle, and her siblings, my cousins, went to New York to clean out her house, because her and her husband and daughter were going to be moving, just from the upstairs of their coach house to the downstairs, thinking it would, change of pace. She would feel better, like coming home from the hospital, she wouldn't have to go up the stairs, like all these things. They removed 8 50-gallon garbage bags full of empty liquor bottles from her house. And when I found that out, I was like, what? And then suddenly things started to make sense. Like, the excessive amount of alcohol in her drinks all these years before. The wanting to drink wine in the car while we were driving. The random broken bone from an unserious and not serious of whatever fall on the ice. The infertility, early menopause, like all of these things now all of a sudden made sense to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's an alcoholic. Like, how did we not know this? Well, part of it is because she's so far away, right? Like, she was able to kind of hide it from everybody. And that's exactly what she did. She hid it from everybody. Like, her husband didn't even know how bad it was. Vegetables are over there cooking. We're going to toss in some crushed tomatoes, some diced tomatoes, and we're going to toss in the chicken stock. And then we're going to be well on our way to some minestrone soup. We're going to be cooking that down a shit ton. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So she hid it from all of us. Like, and because she was so far away, like, no one knew, like, what she was saying was a lie, right? And then we go to late 2015. She made it out of the hospital once or twice in early 2015, and they told her, they said, like, you cannot drink anymore. If you do, you will die. And that's a pretty serious conversation, right? That if someone says to you, if you do this activity, you will die. Like, if someone told me, if you eat garlic, you will die. And if I'm not ready to die, like, I'm not eating garlic, right? And I don't mean to make light of that, but, if someone says that to you, it's you would think, right, that regardless, that you would probably want to take steps to not do that, to like not drink so you don't die and leave your child without a mother and your husband without a wife. Like, to me, it's a no-brainer. But I've also never been addicted to something that my body had already recognized as something I needed to survive. And that's where she was in her addiction in like late 2015. Was that her body thought she needed to drink in order to survive, right? She did not feel normal unless she was drinking. And I get that, right? I get that that's a consequence, and that is a natural thing that happens with folks who struggle with alcohol or, any other sort of substance, right? So 2015 was really bad. It was really bad. And then on Thanksgiving of 2015, our grandpa had passed away that November, and I had talked to her when grandpa had died, and he was 91. He had an amazing life. And I said, why don't you let me fly you out here? You know, you can come see everybody, whatever. She's like, no, it's fine. It's totally fine. Well, she had been drinking again, and that's why she didn't want to come here, because she wasn't going to be able to hide it. You know, she wasn't going to be able to, be on an airplane and not drink, right, for 3 hours or longer. On Thanksgiving, which was just a few weeks later, she called us from her in-laws, and she was drunk. And I feel like maybe she was hospitalized again after that. Buddy, I just don't remember. I remember seeing pictures of her, though, on her daughter's birthday, which was the end of January. And then within a week or two, she was hospitalized. And I didn't understand. Like, I knew, but I didn't understand, like, what was going on. Like, you know, and so I reached out to her best friend, and I said, you know, can you tell me what's happening? And she's like, yeah, she's in liver failure. We did not look good. And, you know, we tried everything that we could to get her qualified for a transplant, which we learned that, I don't know if this is a state law, so don't quote me on it. It could be just a national thing too. I don't know. They do not give livers to alcoholics. You have to be sober for 6 months. And so there was a small chance that there was enough of her liver that was still functional that we might have been able to get her to treatment and get her sober, so she would eventually qualify, you know, for a transplant, right? And, you know, and everyone was ready to, you know, get tested to see if they were a match, and, you know, just whatever, just to like make it happen, because she was only 41 years old, you know, and it was like, she's just so young, right? And it shouldn't matter, like, if you're 90 and you are an alcoholic, or you need a liver transplant, or you're 70, but you know what I mean? Like, it just seems like such a waste of a life. So we tried everything, and unfortunately it was just, there wasn't enough left, right, to keep her alive. And so she passed away. So yeah, so in the span of about 5 years, so this was February 2016, she went from living and having fun and amazing to a full-blown alcoholic and dead. And it's pretty fast. It was pretty fast. And, you know, I've talked to people, they're like, oh my God, my dad's been alcoholic for 35 years and he's not dead. And I think there's a difference if you're like a beer drunk versus a vodka drunk, and she was definitely a vodka drunk. And I think like, the disease just took her to a place that she couldn't come back from, right? You know, and she was suffering. And so I was very angry at her. I still am very angry. Because it's just such a waste, right? And so I did tell my dad when he was dying, I said, when you see Shannon, I need you to punch her in the mouth for me. So I'm sure he did. And you tell her that I am pissed because it's unfair. She's supposed to be here with us. Like, she's too young. But then I've had to accept, right, that this is the way it's supposed to be, that as fucked up as this is, like, this was her destiny, right? This is what the plan was for her life. And that's very difficult. But with time, you're able to accept that, right? You know, and it's gross and I hate it, but it is what it is, right? So anyway, so after she died, so this is how we get to CrossFit. You see, I just took the long way around. I knew I'd get there. So after she died, I decided that I wanted to do a trail run to honor her memory. And a trail run is exactly what it sounds like. You run in the woods on a trail, and the trails are usually very challenging and very technical. And I'd asked a girl that I worked with that she was a trail runner, and she's an ultra runner. So she does the 100-mile trail runs. Like, she is sick. She is so talented and so athletic and so strong. Like, it's crazy. And she says, you know, I said, well, how do you get ready for these things other than running? She's like, well, I go to CrossFit a couple times a week. And I was like, do you think I would like that? And she's like, I think you would love it, you know? And so I called a CrossFit gym. I got connected with my coach, and we started training like a week later. And loved it. And it was amazing. And it has been the most amazing experience I've had. Aside from training with my first trainer, who, remember when I told you that he would train me to within an inch of my life and I loved it? I found out that what he was doing was CrossFit. Like, it just didn't have a name. It wasn't branded at that time. It was just a little bit too early. And so, I fell in love all over again. I quickly had lost all the weight that I had gained back, and that has been a process now where I'm like kind of in that last like stubborn, like 20 pounds, right? Where I'm just like, come on. But we're working on it, and it's going pretty good. We're working on it. I'm feeling pretty good right now. So good of where things are headed. So my butterfly effect is, if my cousin would not have become an alcoholic, if she would not have died, I would not have found CrossFit. And I often wonder how it would be different. Like, if she would have gotten sick and died, like, would I have still done this? And like just for dramatic effect, I like to think the answer is no. Or maybe it wouldn't have happened at that time. Maybe it would have happened much, much later, right? Maybe I'd be starting that journey now. Like, I don't know, right? So that, my friends, is my CrossFit butterfly effect. So after all that, this is where I am. That's where I'm at. And yeah, so I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for that experience, and I don't think it's a coincidence, right? Like, I totally don't. Like, I feel like she totally was like, go to CrossFit. It'll make you happy, after she died. And one of the things I find really interesting is that I don't dream about her a lot. And I dream about my dad all the time, like, but I don't dream about her. I mean, I've only had a couple dreams, since she passed away, and it's been now, or like 6 years, yeah, almost, right? And so, and that bothers me, and I just try to like will it to happen, but I can't, but all of the dreams that I have, I'm always asking her like, dude, what were you thinking? And she never answers me, which is okay. So I've been able to accept that, as much as this blows, right? Like, this is just a part of her journey, right? And of mine and of our entire families and stuff. So what's my point? I don't have one. I really don't. I just wanted to talk about this. But if you're struggling with addiction, if there's someone in your family that is struggling with addiction and they are ready and able and willing to accept help, please do whatever you can to ensure that they get the help that they need. There's a lot of preventable death, especially right now, with the heroin epidemic, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of relapses due to COVID. It's awful. And as a country, right, we need to do better to help people, right, that need recovery, that need to be there, that need treatment, like all of the things, right? But we can't wait for the government to figure that out. We're going to have to do it ourselves. And so if you know someone who needs assistance, please reach out, to your local resources and try to get them the help that they need, and, and go with them. Like, I've had friends that have relapsed in their ED, and I've gotten on the treadmill next to them at the gym and have said, do you need me to take you somewhere? And I'll go with you. Like, and I'll walk you in the door and we'll sit there together, and sometimes that's all someone needs, right? Is just knowing that other people care. And so if you have someone that you're concerned about, please talk to them about it. Like, I have friends that are functional alcoholics, and I have shared my concerns, and that's all you can do sometimes, but at least they know that I'm there for them, and that if they ever want to seek help, like, that I will go with them and I will sit in an AA meeting with them. I'll do anything that they need to feel supported, so they come out on the other side of it. So anyway, thanks for coming to my kitchen again, guys. It was great to cook with you. I will go ahead and put the recipe for the minestrone soup down below. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to talk about, and we'll do it. Next up on the list is going to be pasta carbonara, so stick around for that. But I got to eat all this soup first, so there's that. So probably next week or the week after. In the meantime, have a great day, guys, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye. This is why Italian women look so young all the time. It's the facials that we get from the pasta.